Hi, my name is Ed Williams, and welcome to the LEHR Garden YouTube channel. I've got a couple of speeches that I've done in various forums on this channel already. Feel free to check those out if you wanted to want to get a little more into some of the academic side, some of the, where we're going with this movement. But I really wanted to get this channel started off right and talk about, first of all, what is a LEHR Garden, and how does it work? It's something that there's really a lot to talk about on that issue, and definitely moving forward, we're gonna dig into that really deep. But before even I get to what a LEHR Garden is, I wanted to talk about why I created a LEHR Garden. I don't think that really I need to go into any detail at all on all the crap that's going wrong in the world today. I think it's something that's it's really been kind of shoved down our throats quite a lot. I think we're all well and thoroughly aware of it. But the big question is, what can we do about it? And the thing that really jumps out at me is that the stuff that's going wrong in the world today is mostly due to the fact that we live in an ecosystem that manages the functions of the world: rainfall, droughts, flooding, heat, temperature. All of these things are managed by a functional ecosystem, and we are degrading our ecosystem. We as humans no longer consider ourselves to be a part of the ecosystem, and we are, and that is absolutely undeniable. And we talk about overpopulation. Well, a planet has a carrying capacity, and when you have overpopulation, what you have is an imbalance between how many people you have and what the carrying capacity is. And we all talk about the people side of things. How can we lower the number of people that we have on the planet? But we don't really look at the other side. We just sort of assume that the ecosystem is what the ecosystem is. But we live in an ecosystem that is in an advanced state of degradation. And we actually have the ability, by repairing some of those ecosystems, to bring the carrying capacity up and make it so that we can actually support more people on this planet. And there's actually a lot of room for improvement there. And so what I want to do, what LEHR Gardens is about, is trying to find a way to make this world have a better carrying capacity. And really one of the big ways to do that is regenerative agriculture. So regenerative agriculture is a method, and there's all kinds of people working on the definition of regenerative agriculture. But regenerative agriculture at its core is about regenerating ecosystems, building soil, sequestering carbon, creating habitat, creating biodiversity while you produce food. And there's a lot of really amazing methods that are out there for doing this. I strongly recommend that you look into them. There's amazing work that's been done by a lot of people, but the big question is, most of us live in cities. How can we be involved? It is each and every one of ours individual responsibility to get out there, become a part of the environment that you live in, become a part of your ecosystem, engage with that ecosystem, be a part of the repair. The big question is, how do we do that? How do we do it is a LEHR Garden is meant to answer a lot of that question. A LEHR Garden is about regenerative agriculture in a way that's going to make it easy for people to engage with it. You don't necessarily have to be an expert in regenerative agriculture. You don't necessarily have to be an expert in biological systems or growing foods. There's ways to make it easier. So what does a LEHR Garden do? So the first thing that a LEHR Garden does is it's very productive. It's highly productive in terms of the amount of food that it produces, in the amount of the quality of the food that it produces. So the food is more flavorful, it is more nutrient dense. A LEHR Garden is low water use. We have a lot of areas, especially where I live in the Phoenix, Arizona area, where we have to deal with droughts, and kind of in some cases long ongoing droughts. And so a LEHR Garden is very, very water efficient. A Lear Garden is also very low effort. It's low maintenance. So what we've done with the Lear Garden is created a system that does a lot of its own maintenance. A Lear Garden requires no daily maintenance. It doesn't really even require any weekly maintenance. It's just something that it's designed to run itself to the largest extent possible. And as we move along through this journey, we might even find better ways of doing that. So that low effort, I think, is really, really key. That's something that's going to make it available to a whole lot of different people. But a Lear Garden also requires no chemical input, so no fertilizers, no pesticides, no herbicides, no fungicides. Basically, what we're doing with a Lear Garden is we're going to use that full, complete ecosystem, and we're going to use that to grow that food in such a way that the natural processes. You think about it, if you go out into a meadow in the middle of a forest someplace, who's fertilizing that? Nobody ever puts fertilizer on that, yet it grows in an absolute abundance. There's food for all of the wildlife that comes by, and that's something that we actually have the ability to tap into and take advantage of that natural abundance while reaping the benefits of the natural ecosystem. So what is a Lear Garden? Back to the original question. So a Lear Garden is a new system of agriculture, and what a Lear Garden is meant to do is, it's right there in the name. So Lear is an acronym for linking ecosystem and hardware for regeneration. So let's kind of deal with those words a little bit one at a time. So linking, we're going to basically make them work together. We're not going to say ecosystems over here, the hardware is over here. We're going to link them together. We're going to pull them together and make them work together as one. Ecosystem. So an ecosystem is something that functions on biodiversity. You need to have a functional ecosystem. You need, every ecosystem on the planet has all of these things. You need soil organisms, you need animals, you need plants, you need bacteria, you need fungus, mushrooms, and even mold producing fungus. There's all kinds of different fungus that we don't even hardly know anything about, but all of these organisms have their place in that ecosystem as the nutrients cycle from one organism to another. That really is the functioning of an ecosystem. Then there's the hardware. So we have all of this wonderful technology in this society that we live in, and as we think about, okay, we got to get back to ecosystem, we have to get rid of the hardware, the technology. We don't want to. There's some really good stuff that comes with our technology. It's about using the technology correctly. So what we want to do is, so often we think, okay, well, there's some problems with natural ecosystems. We can get pests, we can get diseases, so we're going to use the technology to replace the ecosystem function. That's not what a Lear Garden does. A Lear Garden tries to keep that ecosystem intact as much as possible. What we're doing instead with a Lear Garden is that we are using that technology to enhance and accelerate the ecosystem function, but actually reducing the human labor. And then the final word there, the final letter there is regeneration. So it is designed to be a form of regenerative agriculture. A Lear Garden creates habitat, it fosters biodiversity, it creates its own soil, and it actually creates its own soil as an output. So a Lear Garden is, by definition, really, it's a form of composting. So what does a Lear Garden do? So again, what it does is it takes the ecosystem and the hardware working together. So you basically have the system itself is pretty simple. You have a tank, a pond that sits in the ground, and it holds your water for you. The water pumps up through the garden. It pumps up to a garden, and it starts in a compost bin. Then the water flows from the compost bin through the compost, through the soil of the garden, and then it drains back down to the pond. basically creating a closed loop for the water. And it also is pretty much a closed loop for the nutrients. As nutrients get added to it, they don't get washed away as we irrigate or flood irrigate or anything like that. They stay right there in the soil. But then the soil itself is actually something that when I add soil to a Lehr garden, I don't add soil. I add very little of anything that you would recognize as soil. Really all I put in there is a little bit of compost, maybe 20% or less of actual finished compost that you would recognize as soil. Everything else is raw materials that we're sourcing from the waste stream of the urban environment. And so those raw materials like wood chips and food waste and grass clippings and leaves and whatever we can find, paper towels, all of these things will break down and become soil in place, and a Lehr garden allows that to happen while the plants grow in it. So, you know, if I look at my plants behind me here, and I take up a handful of the soil, you know, this is the soil that comes out of a Lehr garden. This is actually, this bed behind me is finished. You know, these are all cold weather crops, and it's the middle of summer here in Phoenix. They're still surviving, well, except for the basil. Basil's a hot weather crop. But they are still surviving. But basically what I'm working on doing, and I'll shoot some videos about that, you know, I'm taking down this entire bed behind me, and I'm harvesting the soil. It actually produces soil as an output. And we take that soil and we put that out into the environment, you know, either, you know, put it around trees. It's an amazing soil amendment, basically it then allows us to actually sequester that carbon, because we're processing the carbon down into something that's stable soil carbon that we can then put into the ground and sequester the carbon and hold on to it for, in some cases, long term. So stay with us. I'm going to talk a whole lot more about what a Lehr garden does, how it works, all of the different principles in play. Lehr garden itself was created by combining somewhere around 12 different, 12 to 15, depending on where you draw the line, different techniques of food production and soil creation. You know, things like aquaponics was definitely an influence in creating a Lehr garden. Organic gardening, you've got mycoculture, growing of mushrooms, you got vermicomposting, taking using the power of earthworms to create better, faster soil. You've got all kinds of different techniques, and I'll go through those and talk about what they are, and how they work and how they interact, and how we were able to take all of these huge number of different techniques and pull them together into one integrated technique. So stick around. One of the other things we're going to talk about really is the vision for the future. What is the change that we want to see in the world, and what is the change that we think a Lehr garden can affect in the world? How can we really make a difference? And of course, the lovely thing about it is, you know, if you've got a Lehr garden, you're making a real, tangible difference in the ecosystem. It's a small difference, but it's a real tangible difference, and it's something that makes your life better. It's something that's going to, you're just, you know, how hard does it have to be, you know, that your way of making a difference in the world involves you eating tastier food. I mean, where's the downside in that? So, but there are, you know, if we can start building a movement here and start getting more people on board, and more people growing their own food, and more people creating their own environment, you start to see some really amazing benefits. You start seeing some real tangible difference in the world, and I'm definitely going to be talking about a lot of that. So hit like, hit subscribe, come on back. I'm going to be putting up these videos a little bit more frequently now. I've kind of had a lot of really interesting things that I've been working on, so stay tuned, check it out. I'll see you soon.